How's it going, everybody? Nerds Rising here, and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my latest set of Open Great League action, featuring a fairly strong team, Defense Deoxys on the lead, Umbreon as the safe switch, and Dewgong as the closer. Now, I did not come up with this team. This team has been around for a while. I'm not really sure who did, to be completely honest, but the team did fairly well for me overall. I did, I think, about 100 ELO in like 3 or 4 days of battles. I didn't play every set every day, so probably out of like maybe 50 battles, I went up 100 ELO, so respectable amount of climbing. Honestly, I think Umbreon, despite being super thick and spammy, is not the best thing in the meta right now, just because there's a lot of counters to it. Medicham, Azus are everywhere. I've seen a lot of Charm A9s out there as well, so use it at your own risk. I think there are probably better safe switches than Umbreon, maybe like a Diggersby or Double, or like an Alolan Sandslash, and you could use Dewgong as a safe switch, but either way, we're going to check out probably about 15 battles. We're going to do a little bit of a hybrid video today where I'm going to show you guys like just under 2x speed battles, but if we come to a battle where I want to like break something down, I will pause it or slow it down a little bit just so we can talk about some plays, recognizing your win cons, things like that. And before we get into it, real quick, I just want to say I apologize for not posting as often in the last couple weeks. To be completely honest with you folks, I love GBL, but I've just been a little burnt out on it lately. I've been grinding GBL out since like probably season 3. I think it's when I started, the beginning of season 3. I had a couple seasons where I was just kind of messing around before I really knew what I was doing, and then the first season they released Legend, I hit Legend, and I've been hitting Legend every season since then, and it's just kind of a grind, guys. It really is. You know, I enjoy the game overall, Pokemon Go, but Go Battle League is not really that enjoyable. If you're like, for example, I work full-time, I work a bunch of 12-hour shifts in a row. I work 3 12-hour shifts a week, but oftentimes like over my weekend, I'll do like 4 or 5 12-hour shifts in a row. And when I'm coming off like 4 12-hour shifts in a row, and it's my first night off, you know, my wife and baby are finally in bed and I have some free time, the last thing I want to do is stressfully play a full 25 battles of GBL. That is just the opposite of fun, in my opinion. I would much rather just pour a drink, hop on my Xbox and play something fun rather than like stressing out over GBL. So that's where I'm at right now. I really just haven't been playing that many battles. I've only played about 400 battles the entire season, which is pretty wild for me. And that's just where I'm at, guys. I don't mean to offend anyone at all. I'm just saying the game is kind of a grind sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to me on that. But either way, I'm done complaining. We're going to get into the battles here, and let's check out some incredible, incredible battles, guys. Especially this first one here. Shout out to this trainer, Ditto Incognito. Oh my gosh, this battle was absolutely insane. So let's get into it here and check out the team. So we got Diggersby into Defense Deoxys. A pretty neutral matchup. Honestly, I'd rather be the Diggersby in this situation, just because the only way we can really damage this thing is with our counters and our Psycho Boost. And as soon as we throw a Psycho Boost, we're going to be debuffing ourselves, of course. So here, they do full send the Hyper Beam. I'm calling here that they're going to over farm. They have the move now. I throw one more counter, and then I catch a potential Scorching Sands onto my Umbreon. And Umbreon is very, very thick, as you guys know. Tanks it very easily, and we banked a lot of energy on the DD as well. I believe we have 2 Psycho Boosts, so they actually bring in a Charge Bug. This is a Pokemon I actually have seen quite a bit of, and Charge Bug is a very tough core breaker for this team. It actually does beat our entire team, so it's a little bit tricky to deal with, but here Umbreon is just very, very thick. We tank the X-Scissor, we overfarm, we're throwing on proper timing after 1 Snarl, and they do overfarm as well very nicely. They're going to take us out here, and now I believe I'm going to bring in the Deoxys here, potentially try to grab that last shield with a Psycho Boost. So I'll be coming in, I'll throw 1 counter and then the move, and then I'm actually going to switch into my Dewgong. Regardless of if they shield or not, I'll be bringing the Dewgong in here, and I do have 2 shields still. They've given up both of their shields. I've got 2, so I'm going to start shielding. And the opponent here makes an absolutely disgusting play. They wait 2 turns, and then they catch my Icy Wind onto the Frost Slash. So incredible play there by the opponent. And why this is a nice play is it takes 2 drill runs plus a bunch of Icy Winds to KO the Frost Slash. And now that they've caught my Icy Wind, I still need 2 drill runs to KO this Frost Slash. So very high level play by the opponent. And the thing here is I knew I would slightly outpace them to another drill run before they got to a Shadow Ball. So they actually threw the Avalanche there, expecting me to shield. They have a move banked on their Charge Bug. So I know that they have to basically force my shield with the Frost Blast, and then they would just use their move on the Charge Bug to KO me. So I actually call that it's just the Avalanche. I no shield it, And now I'm actually going to bring my Defense Deoxys in to potentially farm them down. As you guys saw, I had the energy, but I'm not going to throw it. I'm going to force them to throw because I think I might just have countered them down. So I forced them to throw here, and now I'm actually going to come back in. They're still switch locked here and commit to a very aggressive Ice Shard down with a Dewgong. I Ice Shard them down. I'm on like 2 HP. They've got a Diggersby with a decent amount of health and a pretty low Charge Bug here with a charge move. So I have to basically make sure I have 2 moves. I have to make sure I throw the correct move here. I think the Charge Bug is just out of Icy Wind range. So I basically have to Icy Wind the Diggersby and then drill run the Charge Bug. So what I'm expecting them to do is probably do a peekaboo play where they bring in a Pokemon and then instantly swap into their other Pokemon. So I'm actually going to throw the opposite charge move here of whatever they bring in. So if I see the Charge Bug, I'm actually going to click the Icy Wind, expecting the Diggersby to come back in, and that's exactly what happens. And now I have the drill run for the Charge Bug, and that's going to be a GG. Maybe Icy Wind would have carried the Charge Bug. Maybe it would have, but in my mind at the time, that was my win con. So very crazy gameplay there by the opponent as well. Some just very high level gameplay overall. And as you guys saw at the beginning, that's a 2,500 elo, which is pretty wild. I'm at like 2,600 now, but this is the kind of competition I was facing at like 2,500 elo. So some crazy skilled opponents out there right now. But in the next battle, we picked up a Shadow Gliscor lead. And the nice thing about Defense Deoxys on the lead is that you can just always, even if you're not in that great of a matchup, you can just outpace a lot of things, Psycho Boost, dip out, and then bring the Umbreon in to tank the damage. And as you guys saw, the opponent threw the dig onto the Umbreon, and then they actually wait a little bit, and they answer us with an Alolan Sandslash here. So this tells me right away they probably don't have a fighter, because if they had a Medicham, they were very likely just going to bring that in right away. So since I'm calling that they don't have a fighter in the back, I'm actually okay to bring back in my Deoxys here, recognizing that they are going to get this move off. They are going to bring back in the Shadow Gliscor, but I can still tank a move here, and I can Psycho Boost them and very likely grab a shield. And by bringing back in the DD, I have successfully drawn back out this Gligar, banked some energy on my Umbreon, and now I get a shield advantage, and I can just come in with the Dewgong here, fully farm them all the way down. Their A-Slash is super low, and I'm expecting Dewgong with a little bit of energy head start is going to be able to do very well against whatever there's in the back. And even if there's not, even if it is something that beats us, like for example this Deoxys, I have that move banked on the Umbreon. And here I'm recognizing that they're going to probably throw their move. I'm going to shield it, and they're very likely going to be wanting to reset their debuff before they throw another charge move, because they're going to be double debuffed. So there I just hang on to my energy there, and the opponent makes a perfect play. We have to give props to the opponent there, guys. When you're running 3-turn into 2-turn, you're going to be wanting to throw 1 Ice Shard and then the move. And the opponent there perfectly throws their move. They wait for me to throw 1 Ice Shard, and they would have perfectly caught. But since I called they were going to do it, I'm able to hang on to my energy. I farm down the A-Slash, and now I can throw on correct timing here, get my Icy Wind off, and I'll be able to make a combo play on the Umbreon here after I get their last shield. And even if they're at the Thunderbolt and they throw it right away into my Umbreon, that is totally fine, because I probably could just farm them down, because they're not going to get to another Thunderbolt before I make another Icy Wind. So they actually just go for the Psycho Boost there. That's probably a little bit of a BM, just kind of recognizing the game was over there. But very well played again to the opponent, guys. These opponents out here in 2,500 are just insanely good. And that's what I was talking about in the intro, guys, when I said, you know, I like GBL, but like GBL is not a stress-free game. Like, I'm out here at 2,500 playing against former legends who are as good as I am, and it's just like very, very intense battling. So we pick up a terrible lead in the next battle, Sableye, and I go for the drill run there, expecting that the opponent was going to be, basically we're wanting to take the Icy Wind on the Sableye. Sorry, I cannot speak. They were wanting to take the Icy Wind on the Sableye and then instantly pivot out, recognizing that obviously they can just instantly reset that debuff. But drill run does a little bit more damage, which is why I went for it. And it kind of threw them off a little bit. They take the drill run, and then they're kind of just like, what do I do now? They stay in for a little bit longer, which allows me to get to 2 drill runs onto the Registeel, and then I catch the Focus Blast onto the Deoxys there, and I'm still going to commit to the full farm down here. I get the full farm down. They bring back in the Sableye, but I'm going to be able to force a shield here. That Registeel is very, very low, and at this point, 2 shield to 0, Umbreon is just going to be very, very dominant, especially since they very likely didn't have a Medicham, so they didn't bring it into the Dewgong there. So we take the win there. The opponent surrenders. Next battle, we have a Cofagrigus, which is very rare to see on the lead, but really, really bad for our team. So we Psycho Boost and dip like we normally like to do. We bring in the Dewgong here, and the opponent is going to Shadow Ball us and then dip into a Scrafty. So this is absolutely awful. We are going to Icy Wind, but I think if the opponent throws a Pup here, we probably aren't going to make a second move, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to Pup us, and this is a very, very difficult match because Scrafty does well against our Deoxys, so we can bring it back in, but I don't quite think we're going to make the full farm down before they make multiple foul plays. We're going to commit to it here, and here, guys, I'm getting hard countered, obviously, but even in your hard counter games, there's always a win con, and my win con here was to count and recognize that they were going to make that foul play just before I farm them down. I think if I catch that foul play on the Umbreon, bank all the energy on the Deoxys, save a shield, and then snarl down the Scrafty with the Umbreon, I may have a chance here. But as you're going to see, I give up the shield. They know they can live the Psycho Boost, so they don't shield it. And the opponent now has a 2-to-1 shield Shadow Charizard in the back. They actually lag a little bit as well. I missed out on a snarl. They get the Blast Burn off, and at this point, Umbreon down a shield is just not going to take out the Shadow Zard. We are going to get both of their shields here, but as you can see, if I had 2 shields here, I might just have been able to do it, but unfortunately, down a shield, it's not going to happen, especially since I don't have double Psycho Boost on my Deoxys, and I committed the shield on the Deoxys. So yeah, there, folks, just recognizing your win cons sometimes really does win you hard counter games. I truly think if I would have caught that foul play on the Umbreon, if I'd been counting better than I was, I might have been able to flip that game, but very well played to the opponent nonetheless. So next battle, we have a Medicham lead. This is exactly where we want to see the Medicham on the lead here. And the play here is just going to be to stay in. I do always over-farm in that matchup, just in case the opponent tries to catch. But in this case, they actually bring in a Toxapex, so it really wouldn't have mattered if they would have caught the move there, because it still would have been super effective. So there, I go for the Thunderbolt. I'm going to go for the Psycho Boost now, dip out, and send in the Umbreon here. And the reason I send in the Umbreon is just simply because I think it does a little bit more consistently against the Toxapex, whereas the Dewgong's Ice Shards are going to be resisted, and I kind of wanted to save the Dewgong for the end game, just because I like Dewgong in the end game with that Icy Wind debuff potential, because if you can get it locked into something in the end game where they can't reset that debuff, it's very nice to have that debuffing move. So I bring the Umbreon in. Since our switch clocks were a little bit misaligned, the opponent takes advantage of that. They're going to bring back in their Medicham here, and they're going to start power-up punching, ramping up their Medicham. And I don't want that to happen, so I'm actually going to bring back in the Defense Deoxys here. The fact that they stayed in for a little while with the Medicham tells me they probably don't have something that's super strong against the Deoxys, so I'm happy to bring it back in here. And I'm thinking that my Dewgong in the endgame is going to be pretty strong here, because they likely don't have a better answer to my Dewgong than this Medicham. So I do take out the Medicham. The Toxapex is very low. They do have some energy as well, but I have a 2-to-1 shield advantage. What is going to be that final Pokemon? And unfortunately, like I mentioned in the intro, guys, I was seeing a lot of Charm Shadow Alolan Ninetales, and Shadow Alolan Ninetales just completely destroys this team. And unfortunately there, I think we're gonna back it up for a second. I think the opponent makes a bit of a mistake by shielding the Icy Wind. I backed up a little too far, but Shadow Alolan Ninetales, it takes 2 drill runs plus a bunch of Ice Shards to KO. And in the situation after this Medicham goes down, basically this A9 is at like full health, and there's not really an incentive for them to shield the first move, because they're not going to get Ice Shard down. They know I still need 2 moves to KO, and they still have a shield. And in my situation, I know I have to debuff them right away, because if I go straight drill run here, I just get fully charmed down, because even though I have 2 shields, their charm damage is going to be super oppressive. So by shielding this first move by the opponent, I think they make a bit of a mistake, and then they bring back in the Toxapex, which is great for me, because that A9's not making multiple charge moves against me, so I can just farm them all the way down, get all that energy, and unfortunately, I still have to go for Icy Winds here, because if I go Drill Run there, I'm not going to get to 2. As you see, look at how low I'm already getting here. They make a Weather Ball. I'm going to have to shield it, and I am going to make the Drill Run here, but as you see, I'm super low, and this Drill Run's just barely not going to KO, so I'm going to aggressively bring in the Umbreon here, try to make it to a foul play. They are double debuffed, and they just barely make their next Weather Ball. I'm on like 2 HP, and unfortunately, it's looking like it's going to be a tie. 1 Ice Shard and 1 Charm KO, and it's a tie. So I think the opponent would have just straight up won that game if they just would have played their end game a little bit better. But either way, we take the tie. Honestly, I was happy to get a tie out of that game. And in the next battle, we have another Gligar on the lead. Pretty common lead that I saw. And as you saw me play it against the Shadow, we're going to play it the exact same way against the regular one. Psycho Boost and dip into the Umbreon. Hopefully going to be aligning our Dewgong to this thing in the endgame. And this time they go for the Aerial Ace. That does absolutely nothing. And they bring in a Lantern, which is completely perfect for us. Drawing out the Lantern so we don't have to see it in the back against the Dewgong. And as you guys are going to see, we're going to be always throwing on correct timing on odd numbers, 1 or 3, and sometimes 5, just depending, usually 1 or 3. And we're just going to be spamming off these foul plays left and right. And Lantern, despite getting a buff to Spark, they're still going to have a very difficult time sparking us down. So they're very likely going to have to throw another charge move here. And I actually tried to catch there. Not really sure that was the play. I think I wanted to save the energy on the Umbreon, but either way, that's totally fine. We're going to farm them down with the Deoxys, and again, they actually this time are going to come in with a Lickitung. I was expecting the Gligar to come back in, but this is totally perfect. We Psycho Boost and dip, and even though this is a losing matchup, typically for Dewgong in the 1 shield, in the 2 shield, we can just Icy Whim debuff them to smithereens, especially since we were able to get some counter damage off and a Psycho Boost off on this Lickitung. This 2-shield Dewgong is just going to be absolutely dominant. Obviously, I was going to get baited there, but even now, I'm going to no-shield this. Even if they power me, I really don't care, because their debuff, it's not going to do a lot of damage, and I was expecting them to bring back in the Gligar, and I actually decided to throw. Rather than trying to farm them all the way down, I decided to throw, recognizing they probably were going to want to shield that since their Lickitung is getting low. And at this point, I'm just going to save it for the Deoxys, farm them all the way down, but I actually live that move, bank the energy on the Dewgong, and I actually catch the aerial ace there. Excuse me, I cannot say that word for some reason. And I was going to counter them down and then Psycho Boost the Lickitung, and that's a GG. So, well played to the opponent. Even though they had the alignment that they wanted there, 2-shield Dewgong is just so dominant in the endgame. And that's why I was saying I like to safe switch the Umbreon and save that Dewgong for the endgame if at all possible. So, well played there to the opponent. As you guys are seeing, we're like halfway through the video, and all of these opponents are just so skilled. So massive shout out to all my opponents in this video. Just some really, really high level games, and I did absolutely get destroyed, guys. Obviously, I'm not showing you a full... I have showed you a couple losses, but I'm not showing you a full video full of losses, just because nobody wants to sit there and watch me get destroyed for like 20 minutes. Although, I do actually have a couple videos where I do get destroyed, if you guys want to check them out. But yeah, the opponents are just so good, guys. So shout out to all of you. And in this battle, I think I make a little bit of a mistake. As you saw there, I played out the lead against the Medicham, and then rather than just letting that A9 farm me down, I actually Psycho Boosted and dipped out of there, and I think that's a definite mistake. And the reason for that is the opponent has the A9, and by safe switching out of there with my Deoxys, yes, I save it, but the issue is the A9 is now going to be potentially aligned to my Umbreon in the endgame, and obviously it would have been better to just let the, probably overfarm as much as possible, and then Psycho Boost the A9 right before I go down, let my Deoxys go down, and then I can align the Umbreon to the Alolan Sandslash, and the Dewgong to the A9. But either way, I think we're still okay because of all these icy winds just debuffing them. They're actually forced to throw on the Deoxys, which is amazing, and they're still going to have a terrible time trying to double resisted Powder Snow me down. So this is something here still. And again, what you're going to see is Dewgong is just so ridiculous with the icy winds and the bulk that it has. We actually live the Weather Ball. They commit to the farm down, and I still make the icy wind there. So it doesn't end up mattering either way. We still take the win here. Umbreon doesn't even end up having to do anything, but I think it would have been a much more comfortable game if I just would have maintained alignment there. So that's something you can learn from. If something comes in that your back Pokemon doesn't want to see, it's best to just let your lead go down and just maintain alignment there. But either way, we're playing into the next battle here. We have a Lickitung on the lead. And we play this similar to the Diggersby, where we just overfarm quite a bit, do as much counter damage as we can, and then we will throw the Psycho Boost and dip out into our Umbreon likely. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We bring the Umbreon in, there's the Medicham, and that is just the most common thing that you're going to see meeting your Umbreon, guys. The Medicham is just basically on every single team, and Umbreon does actually pretty well against the Umbreon, or the Medicham safe switch. It doesn't win the matchup by any means, especially if they have Dynamic Punch, but it does put up a decent fight. And depending on how much of an energy lead they let you have, you can actually make 3 foul plays sometimes. And depending on the Umbreon or the Medicham IVs, sometimes 3 foul plays actually will just about KO the Medicham. So in that situation, they had Dynamic Punch, so I settled for the Last Resort there. Last Resort does do just slightly more raw damage than the foul play if you're only making 1 move. So that's why I threw the Last Resort there. The Medicham does come back in. Deoxys, I think I make a mistake there. I should have thrown my move earlier, but instead we're just going to commit to the farm down here and get a very nice energy head start with our Dewgong. And Dewgong has a 2-to-1 shield advantage here. They have a Gligar in the back. They bring the Gligar into the Dewgong, and this is just game over because we're just going to Icy Wind debuff them to smithereens. They do actually live that move, so nice call by them, but their Lickitung in the back is pretty low. And after we start Icy Wind debuffing them, even if they Power Whip me. As you guys saw before, a debuffed Power Whip doesn't even do half. So here I actually recognize that. I make a pretty ballsy call, and I call, even if it's Power Whip, I know I'll live it, and they bait with a Body Slam, probably recognizing that they were in a really difficult spot there. And actually it looked like, let's rewind that for a second, it actually looked like if I would have gotten baited there with the Body Slam, based on the lick damage there, it actually does look like my Dewgong might have gone down. I'm not 100% sure though. Power Whip probably would have KO'd. But either way, we take the win, and that's a GG. So, well played game to the opponent there. I believe we have maybe 5 more battles or so, 4 or 5 more battles. We pick up a pretty tricky lead here in the next battle, Shadow Nidoqueen. The opponent makes a mistake here. They go straight for the Poison Fang. You should always be building up to the Earth Power here, because if they build up to the Earth Power, it does nearly one-shot us, plus a couple more Poison Fangs, or Poison Jabs, excuse me. So I actually might have shielded that if they had to build up to it, but they do me a big favor there just by going straight Poison Fang. So I'm going to get both of my Psycho Boosts off. They wisely shield the first, they let the second go, and now I'm going to bring in the Umbreon, and the opponent is not switching out here, so this tells me they may not have a great answer to the Umbreon in the back. And if they don't have a great answer to the Umbreon in the back, hopefully that means they don't have an answer for the Dewgong. But then they actually bring in their Medicham here, so I'm not sure, maybe they just panicked there and they just were a little slow on the reflexes. They definitely should have got out of that Nidoqueen before I got to the foul play, because they just give up their shield basically pointlessly there, because now they're down 2 shields, and they'd be in a much better situation if they had an extra shield here. Whereas now, we're in the 2-0 shield, and I am going to barely make this Psycho Boost. A little bit risky of a call by me to call that I could live that and still make the Psycho Boost, because if I don't, my Dewgong takes a lot of counter damage here. But fortunately, we do manage to farm them down. Only have to tank 1 charge move, shield it up. Nidoqueen's very low. I'm going to watch for a catch here. I'm expecting them to try to catch at some point, and they do try to catch, so I always like to overfarm, guys. If there's not a reason for you to throw your charge move right away, like say I was at 100 energy there, and, you know, didn't want to overfarm past 100, what I would have done instead there is wait 1 turn before throwing to make sure they don't catch. But I didn't really need to throw, because the Dewgong they had just brought in was completely energy dry, and I was not at 100 energy, so I easily could have just overfarmed there, and they recognized that their only win con really was to try to catch. They tried to make the catch, and there, I actually build up to the back-to-back, and rather than throwing the debuffed energy, I actually switch into the Deoxys there to reset the debuff, and now I'm going to double drill run them and take the win, and that is going to be another very well-played game, and very well played to the opponent as well. So, you know, they play out their win con. I like how they came in with a Dewgong and threw 1 Ice Shard and then tried to catch, because most of the time opponents are always going to do at least like 1 or 2 fast moves before trying to catch, or trying to throw, excuse me. But either way, in this battle, the opponent brings in a Deoxys to meet our Deoxys, and we farm up to their move. And since it's a 1-turn switch, and this is something you guys can think about, I'll rewind this just a little bit, just so you guys can see, as they bring in their Deoxys, when you switch out of a matchup, your opponent's always going to be 1 turn of energy behind, and by recognizing they're 1 behind, I can actually sneak an entire free Snarl through as they throw, because they're 1 behind. So as I switch out, they're still 1 turn away from their charge move. So I bring in the Umbreon there, and the Snarl starts as their turn is ending, and it gets the entire Snarl in as they're throwing. So that's an easy way to sneak through an entire fast move. If your opponent switches into something, you can overfarm and then switch out and still sneak through your move, whereas normally you wouldn't. And I'm able to comfortably maintain that matchup. The matchup between Deoxys and Umbreon is kind of an awkward one. It's actually better to be the Umbreon in the situation, because after the Snarls, 2 foul plays does just about KO. In this situation, I didn't want their Dewgong to get a massive energy head start, so that's why I actually come in and I snipe with a Deoxys there. I force a shield off them. I'm going to get debuffed, but that is totally fine by me, because I get a shield advantage, and as you guys have seen, 2 shield Dewgong is just an absolute beast. They do have a Tropius, which is a really bad matchup for the Deoxys here, but this is totally fine. We've drawn it out, and now Dewgong is going to go on an absolute rampage in the endgame here. I actually make a call that I can barely live this here, and this allows me to get to another Psycho Boost. As you guys saw, I was actually committing to the Thunderbolt instead of throwing the Psycho Boost right away, because if I threw the Psycho Boost right away as I got to it, the opponent might have been able to air slash me all the way down and come out with 100 energy, and there I recognized they were at the back-to-back Leaf Blades. They were about to go down, so I figured they were going to wait to just before they went down to throw their back-to-back, and I catch it on the Umbreon, and now Dewgong has the shield advantage into their Dewgong, and at this point, there's really no reason for the opponent to stay in this, unless somehow they correctly shielded my drill run and then baited me with an Icy Wind. But even then, I still had a shield advantage, so I think that was just a GG for them. They recognized it, and they surrender, and that is a GG. So next battle, we have a regular Kanto Muck on the lead, and this is a matchup where it's kind of another awkward one, kind of like the Nido Queen, where we have to debuff ourselves to do any meaningful damage. There, I recognize that it takes 8 poison jabs to get to the Dark Pulse, so I basically just overfarmed by 2 there, recognizing they're probably going to want to overfarm before throwing, and we catch the debuffed, or the resisted, excuse me, Dark Pulse onto the Umbreon, which just basically just tickles it, and they bring in a Charjabug here, and Charjabug, again, is a very big core breaker for this team, but the Umbreon does draw it out, and we are going to get 2 foul plays off onto this thing, which is very nice. Some very needed chip damage here. And then our Dewgong hopefully should be able to farm it down. Very nice charge move timing by the opponent. If you're the opponent and you're 4 turn into 3 turn, you always want to try to throw after 2 if you can. That's 8 turns into my 9. They very wisely do throw, but I think even though they throw on good timing, I still am going to farm them all the way down. And I think I would have farmed them down if they wouldn't have switched out there. So they switch out. You're going to see me make a bit of a mistake here. I should have been counting. I kind of had lost count at this point. I couldn't quite remember how much energy the Muck had when it switched out. I tried to overfarm by 1, but unfortunately it's a little bit too much. They do make the Thunder Punch, and now I'm recognizing I want to make sure I have a little bit of residual energy to outpace whatever's in the back. So I actually undercharge this to a Great, and that allows me to get 2 extra moves off onto the Muck, and that is going to allow me to outpace this Superior that's going to come in. They actually bring back in the Charjabug to try to maybe get 1 Volt Switch off. They aren't able to register the Volt Switch as my Ice Shard does KO them, and I make the Icy Wind on the Superior, and that's going to be a GG. Now, I don't throw my Psycho Boost right away. I know they're not quite in Psycho Boost range, and I want to maximize my counter damage before throwing. I do farm it to the back-to-back, and now this is just going to be game over. They're not going to be able to make another move, and double Psycho Boost should just about KO them, and that is going to be all she wrote. And I believe, is this the last battle? I think this might be the last battle, guys, and yes, I think this is the last battle. So, in the very last battle of the video, we have a Defense Deoxys mirror here, and in the Deoxys mirror, it's best to stay in, because if you're figuring that the opponent's team structure is similar to mine, they probably are running things in the back that are weak to fighting, and the Deoxys is probably their Medicham counter. So the way I like to play this is just to basically overfarm, basically just trade Thunderbolts, and once they let, depending on if they shield or not, if they let the Thunderbolt go, I will let this Thunderbolt go, and I will recognize that my win con is very likely going to be Dewgong with an energy head start, because again, I'm expecting that they have things in the back that are probably going to be weak to my backline or similar to my backline, but unfortunately they actually have an Obstagoon in the back, which was not what I was expecting at all. At this point, I was worried it was going to be the triple counter team, but as you're going to see, I don't remember what they have in the back, but as you're going to see, they're running a very similar team to me, but with Obstagoon instead of Umbreon. And here I recognize that the opponent is not switch locked in, so they can switch out at any time. And I actually go for the Drill Run there, recognizing that Drill Run does a little bit more damage. And this is going to put them into range where potentially Umbreon or Deoxys can take out that Obstagoon in the back. And sure enough, they have a Dewgong in the back. So this team on paper should beat my team because they have Deoxys versus my Deoxys, Dewgong versus my Dewgong. But then they have the Obstagoon to beat my Umbreon. So this should beat my team. But as you're going to see, some very careful gameplay might just be able to get me the win here in the last battle. So there, they recognize that. Obviously, they want to shield the earlier moves before they Icy Wind me. And here, after getting both of their shields with my foul plays, I'm actually just going to continue to overfarm until my switch clock comes up. I don't want to throw that debuffed energy. I bring in the Deoxys to reset the debuff. They try to snipe with the Goon. They are unsuccessful to snipe with the Goon. I get an extra counter off on the Goon. I get the Psycho Boost off on the Dewgong. And now Umbreon has double moves. And we're not debuffed. And I think Umbreon could still just about live a move here. But I believe I do have a shield anyway. And yeah, I think I'd live an Icy Wind anyway. But I'm going to shield it just to be safe. I get the foul play off. And then since I'm only making one more move here, the Last Resort does do slightly more raw damage. And I KO the Dewgong, and that is going to be a GG in the last battle. So very well played to all these opponents. Once again, some just incredible gameplay all around, guys. So, like, I was truly sweating playing all these battles. Some really talented battlers. So thank you guys for watching. If you made it through the entire video, I really do appreciate you guys. Again, sorry for not posting super regularly. I am going to try to start posting a little bit more regularly. I was just on a really long stretch of days in a row. I do have like a week off coming up here, so I probably will put out some videos coming up here. But once again, thank you to all my supporters. If you are not subscribed and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because the more subscribers we can get, the more Pokemon my wife will let me play.